And you're live.
Okay.
I think we're there.
We're not quite as prompt as some of our listeners. But...
Yeah. Some people showed up before we did. That's good. We're just getting the store. What's the word?
Getting the customers
down. Yeah, get those pesky customers out of here. So this is Guitar Talk. I'm Mark. This is Gary. We're at Gary's Guitars, and we're here to talk about guitars. That's the summary. So essentially, we would like people to say hi, for of course, in the comments there. Ask a question if you happen to have one, and join the discussion if you happen to have something to add. Just kind of participate, and then we do this hour-long thing where we get through an hour of talking about guitars. It's always easy to talk about guitars.
Yeah,
we do it all day, and then at the end of the day, we stay for an extra hour and do it for another hour. That's how fun it is.
I remember the first few. It seemed like the hour went on forever.
Yeah,
because there was nobody participating really.
It was
just us talking. Yeah. But now it's like, oh my God, we got 2 minutes left.
So also just chime in and say hi in the chat, just so we know you're out there. The regulars and irregulars, anyone, you don't have to be a regular to chime in. Mark P is in Berlin. So probably not Berlin, but Berlin.
Berlin, Germany.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Oh, it could be Berlin.
Could be Berlin. So here in New Hampshire, we have a town called Berlin. It's spelt Berlin, but they say it Berlin.
Berlin.
And if you say Berlin, New Hampshire, they look at you funny.
All right.
Like, well, it is written.
That's what it says. That Berlin is probably older than this Berlin.
Yeah, we got a bunch of the regulars are on. William, Michael, Bob, Dean.
Hello, everybody.
Analog Blues, Analog Blues is the pseudonym for, I can't remember who it's the pseudonym for right now. But anyways, he's a regular too.
Oh, somebody we know.
Yeah, someone comes in the store. Yeah, I think. So let us start with our. So what we usually do is we encourage you to ask questions, and actually Dean has come up with one already, and then we just do our own little things in the meantime. The first question we have here from Dean is, I got a bunch of Gibson Les Pauls, which that's a good position to be in.
A bunch? Is that like a dozen?
Yeah, a bunch. Yeah,
a bunch of roses.
Huh. The Classic has these 490T and R pickups. The 490T and the 490R pickups. Would you recommend an upgrade to a better classic style pickup other than the Gibson brand?
Well, do you mean classic like a 59 type classic pickup, or something a bit more modern? I mean, at this point, the old T-tops are classics now, even though they were not widely accepted at the time.
Everything. So, well, let's talk about this because we have a Les Paul here in the store that just came in that has replacement pickups in it. And generally, if you had a Fender with replacement pickups, like if we had a, let's say, pre-CBS 63 Fender with a set of whatever Duncans in it, people would be irate. Yeah. They'd be picketing the store. Get the Duncans out of that guitar. My God, what the hell's going on? You people are animals. Gibson players love swapping out their pickups. Mm-hmm. And they love, and they don't, and if you have a Les Paul that doesn't have the original pickups, it's not like, oh, you forget about it. I don't want to see it anymore. It's, well, what does it have? That could be cool. Right. And I think it is a Gibson personality thing. So, we're not familiar with the stock pickups that you mentioned. We're not necessarily familiar.
I remember the 490. I remember their characteristics.
Yeah,
but I mean, pickup choices are, to me, it's totally up to you. What sound do you want? There's a guy in this area that makes pickups and installs them. I love sending people there because they can go and they'll play their guitar and say, "Here's what it sounds like. I wish it had more this, less this." And he'll advise them on what pickups he has that would do that.
And we sell their pickups here, Stonewall pickups as well. And so he has a dozen Les Paul, a dozen humbuckers that would go into Les Paul that go from anywhere from very low output to very, very high output.
Yeah.
So you're going to wonder, like, do you want the amp to suffer when you plug into it, or do you want that classic sound of a low output, humbucker, an earlier humbucker? So,
and of course, you never know until you put it in the guitar.
Yep, that too. Different pickups sound different.
This
Different
pickup
guitars,
in your Les Paul sounds one way. You put it in another identical looking Les Paul, sounds different.
Yep.
So it's always an adventure.
Yeah, the acoustic nature of the instrument does figure into that a lot, and the setup and all sorts of stuff.
But Gibson generally, I think, makes really good pickups.
Yeah.
So saying, Lawlers are better, well, I don't know if they're better. They're different. They might be a little more meticulously made, but I wouldn't say they're better.
Well, let's just take a minute to talk about pickups. And this is, I've been very meta lately. And my answer to everything is materials, workmanship, and design. That everything boils down to that.
R&D.
Well, design, R&D,
Yeah.
yeah sure. So, if you want to talk about an omelet, it's materials, workmanship, and design. Your breakfast was materials, workmanship, and design.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things figure into it. And some people are great at making omelets, but suck at making, scrambled eggs. Or some people can only scramble an egg and they can't make the omelet fold or whatever. But that is that. And so we talk about pickups. You're also talking about that thing. What are the materials that went into it? Are they the highest quality or the right quality? What design are you're using? And in the workmanship, how much time did a human spend with this thing? And how did they do? Whew.
So that wasn't a very specific answer.
No.
But I don't think there is a specific answer for that question.
My answer is this. This used to be my answer all the time. If you don't like the sound of a guitar, go find one that you do like, and don't mess around with pickups. And then I started messing around with pickups. Didn't follow my own advice. But sometimes it's good just to either accept what it is or move on to something else. Getting trying, I put a set of Stonewall pickups into a guitar. I put a set of Stonewall pickups into an Epiphone Les Paul, because I, at the time, didn't have a real Gibson. Hard to find a left-handed one anyways. And it sounded like Jimmy Page. I was like, I turned the guitar from rotten into just tremendous, because it's an Epiphone. And you're going from a low-quality pickup to a very high-quality pickup, and it just made all the difference in the world. I put the same Stonewall pickups into an Ibanez. Yeah.
Not so much?
Yeah. It did not do the kind of improvements I thought.
That's what happens.
It fakes you out. All right, let's catch up with the chat here. Finger Lakes in upstate is another watcher in upstate New York. Dean said PAF style. So is there a PAF kind of pickup you can... Gibson's PAF.
Gibson's PAF, Lawler, Bare Knuckles. There's a new company that I've heard raves from customers, Motor City. I don't actually know that they're new. They're new to me. Out of Detroit. They're really loving their humbuckers. I don't know if they do a 59 style, but that's another name to keep an eye out for.
Seth Lover from Seymour Duncan. We actually sell those here.
Yeah, those are the good Duncans, better than the average Duncans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few people chiming in on that.
What do they call them? The Antiquity series, right?
Yep. So Todd 420, we know what you've been doing. I know quite a bit about Stratocasters. I was wanting to raise the action on mine. Do I have to? Can't pronounce the word. Internalize, probably intonate.
Intonate.
Yes. So.
Yeah, when you set up a guitar, the intonation is the last thing you do, because everything else you do is probably going to affect it. Even a slight action adjustment or changing from 9s to 9.5s, whatever seemingly simple modification can well affect the intonation. It might not. You might check it and it's fine, but it doesn't take much to put it.
That's true. Anything. And neck adjustment can change your intonation.
That's the big one, yeah. A lot of people bring in their guitars. My intonation's out. I go, no, your neck is warped. No, my intonation. Straighten the neck. Now your intonation is fine.
Yeah. And it's all figures into it together. Mike from Hungary.
Oh, Mike again.
Just chimed in.
I got your email.
All right,
I
nice.
haven't finished reading it.
Mike is a
He's prolific emailer.
yeah. Let's see here. Jeff says I have a problem with factory pickups and a telly. It turned out to be a string height adjustment to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a range of distance you want typically to have between the string and the top of the pickup, or the magnets in the pickup. They may be sticking above the top. You get them too close, and the magnet will literally pull the string out of its smooth ellipse. When you pluck the string, it should make a nice smooth ellipse. If it gets too close, and that's that warbly sound.
Terrible, yeah.
You can hear it on any Strat by playing the low E string is up on the 15th, 16th fret, because now you've got 3 pickups pulling a big string, and that's why that sounds warbly.
Yeah,
is a term I hear. So yeah, and one of the best sounding Strats I ever heard belonged to a friend of mine. He just said, "To hell with it," put all the pickups flush with the pickguard, so he could play as hard as he wanted. Turned his amp up. Great Strat sound.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, we have a MJP from Auckland, New Zealand, chimed in. So hello to Auckland. If you happen to run into Elroy Finn, tell him I need to talk to him. Elroy is Neil Finn's son, who recently started his own musical career as well.
And he stole your name?
Well, that's what his record says, Elroy, with no last name. I mean, if your name's Finn, you should put your last name on the record, right? And he used a script logo in the corner, which is all my records have the script logo in the corner. And so there's been some trouble online here.
Roxanne has had a band called Elroy for
20 years, yeah, 20 something, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, anyways, hello to New Zealand. And then let's catch up a little more here. String height adjustment. Yeah. So the thing about the string, those poles are
staggered.
Yeah, staggered, and so one of them could have been a little too low. But also, what I didn't know, and that now they put a sleeve around the pole, so the pole is technically adjustable.
Oh,
so traditionally they did.
Fender does?
Yeah, in the Fender. Yeah.
Well, I'm probably not supposed to say this.
Yeah.
But they've always been adjustable.
Yes,
I don't recommend you do it, but I have gently pushed and pushed up or down Strat pole pieces, and I haven't broken one yet. But
you hear all
I'm
about it.
Assuming there's some wax in there, and Mike might be cringing at this moment, but he's probably done it.
Yeah. Any daring guitar repair you can think of, Mike has probably done it before you did, and was more cavalier about it.
Well, you remember, you might be too young to remember the Flesh Tones at the Stone Church guitar repair gig.
No.
Repairing guitars with chainsaws.
Okay.
On stage. That they never were allowed in the Stone Church again. What a night it was.
Any thoughts on a 1996 Fender Tele 52 Ri? Were they any good? Better than the recent Mexico Tele Crop? Thanks, guys. So the 52, it was in 1996, and it's a 52 reissue, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Could have been made in Japan?
Could have been.
Not familiar with that particular. You stumped us again today. That's
although
two stumps.
I was just talking to Steve, and he brought up a point that I'd forgotten about. There were the few years there. He's got a 97 Strat. So right around 92, or what did he say, 96? But anyways, in that era, the California series, Fender basically closed down the Mexican plant and started building those guitars in the United States using woods from the custom shop and other places. Pretty immediately figured out that wasn't great, so they started doing the paint jobs in Mexico. 2 or 3 years of that, and then bringing back over, and they were assembled in the United States. And I think the California series are those. So Steve's opinion was, and he knows a lot about guitars. I got a Strat. Maybe it was a custom shop body. It was a really great body. They sent down to Mexico, got painted, made it into a Strat California series, and I got it for $800.
Well, the California series also, we do believe they discontinued it because it was too good.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
They were actually, yeah.
So,
and I don't know if that actually figures into the Mexican Fire era as well, or whether or not that was their first, because that was 98.
I wonder if that telly is from that.
Well, that's 96. It'd be a little early for that.
Well, it was 2 or 3 years. I don't know if it started in 97 or 95.
He says made in the USA. This is a 52 reissue made in the USA. Probably great. Made in 96.
Yeah.
96 is my Strat year. They might be,
Right.
They were doing fine then. The tuners sucked a little bit.
Hmm.
The tuners from that era are failing now a little more commonly, and they just weren't as good as the tuners they now use or any premium reissue tuner.
Right. Well, overall, the reissue series has been high quality, and the Japanese stuff in particular was, when it first came out, it was really good.
Yeah.
Those early 80s Japanese ones.
Fender's problem is they make too many guitars, right? They're just too many choices.
Well, it is confusing.
Especially when you look back on 70 years of making guitars, and this year's great. This year, don't get it. This year was made in Mexico. Then it was made in California. Then they moved to Japan. And then so this is my Squier. I have a Squier P bass, and I bought it because it was a made in Japan Squier, and I love the made in Japan basses. And I do the research on it. Turns out it was between the Mexican factory and the Japanese factory era. It was actually made in America.
Ah.
So I have a made in America Squier because of the serial number and the year of manufacture means that it was not Japanese
Was it
made.
like 82 or something?
No, this goes back to 89.
Oh, a little later.
So yeah, they did the made in Japan production. They decided to no longer make them in Japan. They had the Mexican factory to make them at, but they weren't ready to do it. So anyways, I accidentally got a made in America. I accidentally bought a made in America Squier. And George, our friend George, who was one of the investors in Fender, who was there, back in the early 80s, he swears he was there scraping decals off of Fenders in some dude's garage. So the first few months were tough, and they didn't know. So they were taking made in the U.S. They're taking Fender guitars, scraping the decals off, and putting Squier decals on because they had way too many orders for Squiers and not enough orders for Fender. So he swears that happened, and he was there. So, hi from Australia, Ross. Wow, what time is in Australia? I didn't want to know. Early morning breakfast time, right?
Yeah, must be breakfast.
Thoughts on intonating the G string properly on electrics for cowboy chords. So open, a lot of open strings. So like when you play that C and you're fretting the second fret on the D string, So,
well, we have to go back to guitars are imperfect. You can intonate it till you're blue in the face. It's going to be out of tune somewhere. But I did quote James Taylor a few weeks ago here. I watched an interesting video, which is on YouTube. I think it's just James Taylor tuning guitars, something. Over the years of playing for 5 million hours, he's figured out what to him sounds right. So each string, none of the strings are right.
No, he tempers it.
Yeah, every string is the E string. High E is 2 cents low, and the low E is 1 cent high, and I forget it all. But so it's inspired me a little bit to start going by ear. Trusting the tuner. Okay, it says it's in tune, but it doesn't sound right to me, and giving it a couple more tweaks and up or down, and okay, well that sounds right.
Doing the final tweak on the intonation by ear and not by like on that G string. Right. Well, here's also the problem: the diameter of the string is it's the biggest plain string.
The G.
Yep. Yeah. And it kind of intonates differently. Your intonation is determined by the size of the core of your string. So that's why the G, the G is a giant core because it's not wrapped.
So it needs a lot more compensation.
Yeah.
This much more, a ton.
Yeah. So that's why it's kicked back anyways. And then it never sounds right because that's when you're crossing from the wound string to the unwound string. Unless, especially if you're playing cowboy chords, you can get a wound G. on a set of 11s would have a wound G.
Sort of like the B and the D sort of place.
Yep. So, and that would change your intonation completely. I think we sell them, 11s.
Yeah,
with a wound third. They're called wound third D'Addario with their XL. Hold on. EXL 115W.
Started carrying them because of people bringing back to life old electric guitars and acoustic guitars, but old Ks and harmonies with non-adjustable intonation, preset intonated bridge saddles made for a wound G string, which is a very different place from a plain G string. So, okay, well, we'll just carry the strings and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So they do come in handy for that. And a lot of people like the sound better. So
that is something to try, definitely, especially if you're just playing those open chords. You might like that wound G. And so this catches us up on the questions so far. And Ross says, thanks. Let me bring up my topic for today, because someone asked about this. Actually, someone asked about this in the notes of the last show, because I mentioned
about Class A.
Yes. Well, specifically, they said, Fender Champion 600. Yeah. So this is the Fender Champion 600. It says Fender Instruments, Corona, California, which is where their not their headquarters are in Arizona, but their factory is there. But this thing is made in China. Don't listen to the label. This was Fender's answer to all those other companies selling a $200 amp, and people loving as just a simple tube amp. But I suspect it was so popular it interfered with Champ sales, because the only difference between this and a Champ is this does not have a tone control.
Right.
It just has a volume, and that's it. And the Champ will have tone controls, and then so there's a vibro Champ too. But this is a whole lot of fun, this amp. And they've discontinued it. We cannot get them anymore.
Is it 5 watt?
But yeah, let's talk about what makes it cool, which is Holy Hand Grenade says, "What's up?" So the stylings, this is what draws you to it at first. It looks like an amp from the 60s. Kind of like, you remember Dan Electro had little combos a little while that had the 60s look. It just looks
panels.
Yeah. It just looks great.
It's a TV front.
Yeah, the TV front. And this uses 2 tubes. And so this is what we call a Class A amplifier. And everyone's kind of going nuts over low wattage amps. Right? Everyone's like, how do I either turn my high watt amp into a low watt amp, or how do I, get rid of this thing?
How do I turn down my 15 watt amp? It's too loud.
And so the next solution is 5 watts. And there's that YouTube channel called 5 Watt World about this guy who tries to simplify his whole, guitar setup, but because he has a YouTube channel now, owns more stuff than ever. But he does some really good profiles on amps and companies. And so it's got a preamp tube and a power tube. So ordinarily in most tube amps that aren't a Champ, we have 2 tubes working together, push-pull. And they both handle a different, part of the frequency, and there's a reverse phase on the second tube, and it literally kind of pushes the signal through. And essentially the tubes don't work as hard. So it's like if we were doing a fire brigade, I hand you the bucket, and I get that second to hand you the next bucket. And so it's not like I'm running with buckets. And that's kind of the technology behind that. We also have that custom Defender. There's a lot of examples of this single-lidded 5 watt thing. The sound is different. Class A is, as it might sound, is kind of the first category of amps. But I know a lot of hi-fi guys go nuts over single-ended Class A amplifiers. Remember, they were everyone trying to figure out how to get the purest sound. So that says something about it. It's a distinctly different sound. Like most amps that look like that one, the volume changes until about halfway up, and then beyond that, the loudness doesn't change.
Well, not much.
Just the amount of distortion that happens will change. They can be made cheaply, and that's why they can be sold cheaply, because the transformers can be simpler, the power supply can be simpler, and we do have one of these in the store. It's used. We had to. And here's the other big question we get about these, and I think this was what someone asked. It could have been Ross. He says Ross says the AC4 is a great low watt amp, 5 watts. He asked about changing the tubes and whether or not it does anything.
It'll do something.
The answer is yes, it does something. These usually come, because they come from China, they come with Chinese-made tubes. And they're kind of a baseline of a tube. Every once in a while, someone will say there's a great sounding Chinese 12AX7 or this one. I tried every 12AX7 in the world, and the one that sounds the best is this Chinese one. It's entirely possible. They all work. But the one thing on a small amp you're trying to get is more gain because it's so underpowered anyways. That a high output tube, a Sovtek 12X7 is based on the Russian 6N2, which is a preamp tube that's just like the 12X7, but 2 pins are different. So they just reverse the pins, and so it's like a Russian designed tube that's not really a 12X7 that now is the world standard for 12X7.
Oh.
That's why ECC 83s sound so different, because they're more like the old 12X7s than the 12X7s we have in everything. Oh. Because of that Russian tube. That's a little more output that made everyone go like, wow, this thing's great. I got to put Sovteks in everything. And that was let's see here. That was the, what's the word? That was the genesis of that whole, that's, when Sovtek took off in the late 90s, it was because, even early 90s, I guess a little more, but people were saying, like, I want these tubes in my amp. Take out these stupid GEs, put in something louder. I want that extra 2%.
It was the end of the absolute end of the American tube era.
Yeah.
So there weren't too many choices. Well, my understanding of Class A is traditionally Vox amps. They're the Class A amps. Not all of them, obviously, because I think there's a limit to how much power you can get.
Yeah.
You get over 30 watts, Class A's a little funky. So you got to go to Class B or push-pull.
Well, there's AB, which is the push-pull pair, but maybe what you're talking about is, but I don't think this is I'd have to look at some schematics, but you can have 2 tubes in parallel as well. They're not push-pulling. They're just both 2, just going in and going out of the same 2 tubes.
Right.
But yeah, they don't add up the way the push-pull pairs do. But I don't necessarily think that's a Vox thing. As
my
a
first
owner of a 64 Vox,
my introduction to Class A guitar amps was it's a Vox thing. Not all Voxes, but lots of Voxes have Class A. Some of them have a switch, Class A or B.
Yeah.
So I think of it as a British sound. It's part of the British sound, which is different from the American sound, which is predominantly push-pull.
The Fender used push-pull on everything but the Champ.
Right.
Yeah, and so just how many tubes there were, but
you can't do push-pull with only 1 tube.
So, also I was going to say, someone asked, have you heard the Champion 100? Yes, that's a new series. The 100, we have the 40 in the store. We've had 100s in the past. The Champion 20, they're that new solid-state Fender amp. That's all right.
Oh, that's the digital modeling and effects.
Well, it just has a little bit of digital stuff on the other end, but it really works like an amp. It's not like a modeling amp with a PA amp in the end. The Mustang is really just modeling. Right. Here's something that makes it louder. Whereas the Champion is an amp and you get all these effects.
Yeah, recently sold the Mustang to a guy, and he didn't really care about the effects. It has an off switch. There we go. Now that's off. Just use the knobs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's really all I want. I'll play with that stuff. And he bought it.
Well, the Mustang 50.
I hadn't found that off switch.
Yeah. How do you make this stuff stop?
Stop all this stuff.
All the presets. Yeah, you hit the off switch, and then it behaves like it doesn't have all the presets,
right.
But it's still doing the same, running through the same processing. 12AX7B can be used to quiet down a noisy amp. So that's Jeff mentioned that, and that is true in the old days. No, that's an old. The B was kind of like just a slightly quiet, not military spec tube.
was 7025.
7025. Well, this gets okay. So every tube has 3 names.
Yes.
It has the commercial industrial name. It has the Joint Army Navy name, and it has the European name. So commercial industrial is 12AX7. Then the government being what the government is, they had the JAN, Joint Army Navy. Everything made for the government had to be designated differently. And that's 702. What was it?
7025.
And those are supposed to be at a slightly louder, slightly more powerful because they made them to military spec. Yeah.
Stronger.
They just had to make sure they would last a little longer and whatever. So they just kind of made them be more output kind of.
If you look at 70s, mostly tube charts for the bigger Fender amps, Twins, Pros, Supers, they all have 7025 preamp tubes. Because they didn't want them to break up too much. They wanted them to be clean, powerful amps.
No, well, 7025 preamp tubes.
Yeah,
those are hardier. So yeah, I guess the phase inverter wouldn't break up
so
too much. Yeah.
So a lot of people discovered pull those out, put 12AX7s, and get a little something out of there.
There's a lot of swap in kind of things, but and then the third is the European. That's the ECC 83 in the case of the 12X7. The tubes are just manufactured by different companies and given different, and I think that was kind of the Philips name for it, so that just became the European name for it. Some of them are remarkably similar to each other, despite having different names, and some are remarkably dissimilar. Sorry to get. So that covers the Champion, and let's see if there's anything else from the audience here.
Because this has been here for maybe a month now.
Yeah, no one's bought it yet. Yeah,
I think it's the most positively commented on amp in the store. A number of people when I'm here, which isn't all the time, and let me plug into that little Champ.
Yeah, oh my God!
Sit there for 20 minutes and thanks for the guitar. That's a great sounding amp. I love that. I'm like,
and not only has no one bought it, but check this out. These things, when I looked them up on Reverb, so new they went for $199.
Yeah,
because they've been discontinued. I looked it up on Reverb. You're gonna see what they're selling for there. $299.
Oh, of course.
So we got it for sale for $199 in the store because I think it's unconscionable to sell it for more than it used to cost or something. Right. $199. This is a great amp for $199, and it has yet to sell.
Speaking of tubes, isn't this the one that had a bad tube when it
came in with 2 bad tubes and a bad, came in with a bunch of stuff.
I remember it wasn't working.
No,
popped in some tubes. Oh, that might be it.
There's some others. An input that was weird.
So it has brand new tubes.
Yeah, it has new tubes. Actually, it has better than new tubes. It has cool old tubes. I think we put a
what is it? A
Sylvania or something?
It's a 6V6.
6V6. Yeah, and a 12X7.
Maybe it was an old Sylvania.
Something cool in there. So it's upgraded tubes. Someone come here and buy this thing. Sorry about that. Holly says, holy hand grenades. I'd buy that. So go ahead, come on by. It's here.
Monty Python.
While supplies last.
I presume.
Cheers from Cleveland, Ohio. Rich says, thinking of buying an American Pro 2 Tele Roasted Pine. You guys think they're good guitars? The Pro 2 we have not seen many of.
Roasted pine body, I'm sure he means.
Yeah. It could be body. Yeah.
Wouldn't be a pine neck. That'd be a
really bad idea.
Brave.
Yeah.
Haven't seen one.
Sounds delicious.
Pine Tellies were all the rage a few years ago. Who's the famous guy who started it? He bought a piece of property. There was an old barn on it. He tore parts of it down, and he scavenged some old pine and had it turned into a Telecaster. And somebody made a documentary. Ginger Moosh maybe made a documentary about it.
All news to me.
He's a well-known guitar player. Anyways, next thing you know, people wanted Pine Tellys.
Reclaimed Pine Telly.
A couple friends got them and they loved them. They weigh nothing relatively, and a little maybe more open sound, not so twangy in the Telly world.
So some of the original Tellys were pine. Is that true? Before Like the earliest woods.
I'm
There
drawing
was
a blank on that. The cabinets were pine in amplifiers.
Yeah,
Pine.
Hey,
Mike,
look it up. Yeah,
Mike.
yeah. Is Mike still out there? Yeah, Mike's still out there. Chime in.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure they experimented with it. I don't know if they
Yeah.
actually produced them. Whatever was cheaper for Leo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if
we get a good deal on some alder. We're building them out of alder.
Alder, yeah, there you go. What is the SG looking guitar behind you guys? It's an SG looking guitar. It's the J Tercer.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
P90.
It's a used J Tercer that's just
set neck. You did the setup. It looks like it came out good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty real little guitar for almost no money. And
P90s are all the rage.
Oh, and right behind it is it's basically the same guitar with a single P90.
Yep, the SG Junior version.
Yeah.
They came in separately at the same time. We have a problem, I think. Well, you definitely have this problem, which is once you see a sad guitar, you just want to make it unsad.
Well,
and so we buy a guitar for $100. We put $100 worth of labor into it. We put a $30 gig bag with it, and we sell it for $159. It doesn't make any sense, but it's making sure the guitar,
says the guy who spends weeks of his life restoring harmony guitars from the 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
I know this is crazy, but I have to do
it. With no truss rod.
I'm going to take the back off, whatever it needs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. It's it's a good illness to have. It's just the need to want to make something live again.
Fix things.
So that's what these are. These are just a couple of cheap guitars that got a lot more attention than they deserve. They got fresh strings, setups, any repairs they needed.
Right.
Sad guitars have a lot to say, according to Dub Delay. William Morgan's asking about Gibson Les Pauls, chambered or solid. What do you think?
Yes.
We've had them both. Yes.
Yeah, the chambered's
fine. They don't chamber it that much. It doesn't make it semi-hollow or anything, really. It just kind of lightens it up. So
yeah, they take a couple pounds out of the body.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go historically. I think the Guild Bluesbird, was that the first chambered Les Paul style guitar? And then Gibson copied it, I think. Not being a heavy guitar fan, I kind of like the way they are lighter. But I can't imagine they're going to sound just like a Les Paul that weighs 4 pounds more and is all solid wood.
Well, they're both just good sounding guitars, just sound different.
Yeah, they're just different.
If you want to be Jimmy Page, you need all your Les Paul intact.
Right.
If you want to get that sound, you need that giant one-piece body with a two-piece top.
Pretty sure that's what Les Paul said.
Yeah,
they have to be heavy.
It has to be heavy.
This is built for sustain. Mm-hmm. If you take pounds off, you lose sustain.
Yeah.
That was part of the falling out he had with Gibson once upon a time.
Mm-hmm. Another Paul is asking, great show. I have a 1978 Gibson ES 347 guitar. You could buy one 2 years ago for $2,000. Now I see the asking price is $4,000 to $6,000. What's your opinion? So guitar. So Gibson was undervalued, I think, for some time. May still be undervalued, vintage Gibsons, classic Gibsons at least, even that. But used guitars are going for crazy money now. Someone walked in, said, "Do you have any old guitars?" I'm like, "Yeah." Half the store is old guitars. He said, "No, like really old guitars." Like he went 60s, 50s, pre-war actually. And I'm like, "Well, you know what? We haven't seen a lot lately. We used to always have a couple around. Even if it's Stella or something, we had something.
Right.
They're just not anywhere to be found now. They've been bought up.
Yeah.
So
collected.
And then also when you talk about the anything that looks like a 335 but isn't, it used to take $1,000 off the value right there.
Unless it was a Lucille.
Yeah, but if you had the stereo one, no one wants that. Everyone wants a 335. But that's less of that's happening now. People aren't as judgmental of the 335 type guitars that aren't
Right.
actually the 335.
I think vintage guitar values, at least for models that are still in production or similar to guitars still in production, their value is partially in relationship to what they cost new. Gibson raises the prices on new ones.
Yep.
Up go the vintage prices.
That's true too. Yep. If you can't, yeah,
'Cause,
they have to. Yeah. And some of the prices are about the same. Right now, Fender's facing that on their amps. You can buy a used Fender Deluxe from 1970, let's say something that isn't totally primo, but a good year, for $1,000, $1,200. You can buy the new one for $1,200.
Right.
And it is. Oh, the doorbell's going nuts. The doorbell woke up. We got a doorbell problem. Sorry, folks, if you can hear that.
It's telling us somebody opened the door an hour and a half ago.
So, California Dreaming says Guitar Center had the Champion on sale for $99, so I bought it. It sounded quite boxy, so I sold it. Yeah, well, it is technically a little box.
I'll go and plug it.
I'm gonna go and plug that thing
because it's not going to stop.
Yeah. It is technically a box, so it's gonna sound boxy. It's a sound that not for everyone, but if you like the sound. Then Holy Hand Grenade says, I bought a guitar from one of my neighbors that worked at a thrift store. It was a Voyager by Arbor. I've never heard of these guitars before. Are you guys familiar with them?
Asian made 80s. I vaguely remember them as Gibson styles, mostly. They were nothing fabulous. They were maybe a little better than a Honda or a Memphis. The old Aria Pro 2s maybe were a little better. They were, good starter guitars. Can't say I've seen one in a while. I guess they weren't that popular. There's not millions around here.
Yeah. But also that kind of figures into what was kind of an okay guitar at one time. Now it sometimes becomes highly regarded. Those Hondos and Memphises,
Well,
we sold that Memphis bass here for whatever, $300 or $400.
Was a Japanese Memphis.
That was Japanese.
That was a pretty good P bass.
Yeah.
They're wildly erratic. But
this is Mike chiming in. I heard some of the early tellies were pine.
Yeah.
Also, some bodies were thinner. I have an alleged 52 body that was, in fact, thinner. Pickup routes and string ferrules were the typical depth. So it could have been an experiment. We could have just said the Affinitys are thinner. And some people, when someone picks up an Affinity telly and goes, I really like this thing. And sometimes they end up buying them.
Quarter an inch.
Yeah, they're noticeably thinner and lighter, and I think that's what draws people to them.
Right.
And then they will modify it until it sounds almost as good as the Player series they didn't buy.
So I guess there probably are some pine Fender guitars from the 50s.
Yeah.
But maybe not really in production for long.
No, I remember reading something about either wood supply or he bought a bunch of wood, but those could have been the painted ones, the first of the painted ones, because they had to wood putty the wormholes in it. Or, I can't remember what part of some of the stuff is just legend, some of it's true.
Well, I've seen a number of old Fenders in particular who've been stripped and turned out to be a big mistake because it's clear they painted the ugly
painted the ugly body.
Colors.
And the same thing with anything. The solid color ones are the ugly ones. If you buy a set of painted drumsticks, it's because if you saw the grain on this, you would not buy this drumstick.
Doesn't mean it's a bad guitar. Not beautiful grain.
Yep. Don't strip your guitars unless you're John Lennon. John Lennon, George Harrison got high and stripped their guitars, and they made history.
The Epiphones.
So you can see, he had the Casino, and George had the what he did was they painted the guitars psychedelic,
right?
And they got tired of it, and then they stripped them.
Oh, George had an SG.
So George had I thought it was the Bebopalula from Magical Mystery Tour Stratocaster. Oh. That was the one that he got high and painted. And I think they got high and painted his Rolls Royce as well. I don't know. Those guys used to smoke the jazz cabbage a little bit. But yeah, but the Strip 3, I remember reading an interview with John saying the guitar sounded better after I stripped it. And that's what, so he kept using it for years.
Then he painted it again.
Did he? I don't think so.
Oh, he did? Oh,
that just stayed
the
natural.
casino. That was natural, wasn't it?
So originally it was a sunburst. So like rubber soul era, you'll see him with a sunburst casino. Then he psychedelic painted it. Then he stripped all that off to the bare wood, and then it stayed bare wood for the. I mean, like,
those are all the same guitar.
Yeah, those are all the same guitar. Yeah. Back when, like, Paul McCartney's still playing the softer bass. You could, the guy. Come on, Paul.
Still got the set list on the side, right?
Yeah, yeah. You made a couple of bucks. Buy yourself something.
Keeps breaking into we can work it out unexpectedly.
By yourself. Yeah, looks down like, oh damn.
No, sorry, wrong set list.
All right, let's catch up here for a second. Dub Delay says, I have a Japanese Strat from the 80s. It's a Starfire. Can't find anything about it. Nice to play. Made in Nagoya.
Japan?
Yep. So is it different than he said Japanese? If it's made in Nagoya, that's weird.
I don't remember that. There were...
it has to... So all Fenders in Japan are made at the Fujigen factory because under contract, they actually had a joint company that manufactured all that stuff. So.
And I know Fender, I don't know if anybody else did this, but Fender had overseas plants, and they not only made the standard models, but they did make some unusual models that only sold in
that country. Yeah.
So a Starfire? Is that what you said?
Starfire.
It might be something that was made in Japan and sold
for the Japanese market.
We see them every once in a while. Somebody who was in the military. Look what I picked up in Japan. I never heard of it. Me either. But other than that, I'd have to go look it up because I don't remember Fender Starfire brand name.
Then Stephen, I have a Starfire jazz bass made in Nagoya, as well as plenty bang for your buck. Intuizo pickups, some say.
Look it up.
But now you make Gary go get a book.
Two guys got it. I got it.
Once this guy gets his nose in a book, yeah. Have my eye out for the bass too, says Dub Delay. So let's find out what is this.
It might not be in.
So this is the George Gruen book.
I was just thinking this goes back to the 90s. So
if only there was this kind of international database of information that could be kept and contacted wirelessly through a series of routers.
What year did he say the Starfire was?
He said 80s.
Okay. This has got to come.
Which would predate, actually, that would predate the, it may predate the relationship with Fuji. So it could have been the Bill Schultz era, but before the buyout.
Right. And did you say it was a Strat?
Which would mean, which is probably manufactured in cooperation with Yamaha, because that was Bill Schultz's ex-company. And someone's asking if he means the Starfire from Guild, and he's like, no, not the Guild.
Right.
I remember seeing the Starfire ads. Now, this is starting to sound familiar to me, too, in Guitar Player.
Not in here. Might be time to go to the dreaded internet. But
well, we'll figure that out and let you know. Let's keep the
Starcaster here.
Yeah, the Starcaster was
Squire.
But they do make a regular Fender version of the Starcaster. But yeah, so my suspicion is Starfire is a shameless clone firm, I think. We had a lot in Scottish guitar shops, so maybe not be a Fender, but a Japanese-made Fender copy.
Or somebody anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, he was saying Japanese-made, but okay.
Well,
so I do have one more thing I want to talk about with you here.
Yes.
Because Gary's going to go on vacation. He's going to mix the next 4 or 5 shows.
Yeah, on Monday I'm leaving for Germany for a month.
Yay!
Yay for me. Haven't seen my daughter and grandkids in 2.5 years.
Yes.
Finally.
You'll be more grandkids than last time you saw.
I haven't seen one of them yet.
2 children. She has 2 kids, so that's going to be great. I envy you. We'll miss you. But the one thing that came up in the store recently, and it comes up a lot. I just want to talk about acoustic guitar pickups.
Okay.
Mainly because of that repair that we had. You're just trying to get them sound even, and we have the damnedest time with a lot of them. But let's talk about the kinds of acoustic guitar pickups there are.
Okay. Magnetic and piezo.
Okay.
I think that covers it.
That probably covers, yeah, there's no
many
other kind of
versions of the
transducer. Yeah.
piezo. Well, the old stick-on Barkus, those were piezos.
Yeah, that's a piezo element. So a piezo element is a transducer, but it's it's got a negative and positive side. So it does a differential. When it vibrates, it will create a signal that you can turn into sound.
As you discovered many years ago, they come in doorbells.
Yeah, the old door. You go down to Radio Shack. A friend of mine told me that. Just go down to Radio Shack and buy a doorbell. You get the doorbell, you pry it open, there's a piezo element in there.
Glue it in your guitar.
Yep, then you're done. Yeah, $7 pickup. A lot of times they're very low output, so pairing them with a preamp is important.
Mm-hmm.
Fishman found that out. Fishman, Martin Thinline. That was the first under the saddle piezo. Who had the first under the saddle? Ovation, yes.
Yes, back in the 70s. Glenn Campbell, pickups, acoustic guitars, yay. Theirs was pretty weird. It was integral to the saddle. It was all one piece. You couldn't mess with, change anything. But it worked.
Yeah, that was the beginning of that sound.
The Martin Thin Lines came out in the 80s. I don't know who made those. Progressed into then Fishman, L.R. Beggs. Actually, EMG made the revolutionary pickup with a strip instead of 6 elements. So now the pickup is much easier to put in.
Yeah.
And it works more dependably.
And is that where Fishman comes in?
EMG is, I think, I remember the first EMG, are they making under the saddle piezo pickups? Got one, put it in, didn't have to fuss with it. I looked it up. What's going on? Oh, it's a strip. It's not 6 elements.
Right.
Cool.
That was the first time it happened to you.
So I think they figured it out. But now everybody does.
Well, actually, Mr. Fishman himself lives not far from here. Maybe I should ask him to guest host. We're going to need guest hosts for the next 4 weeks. Wouldn't
Call
that
up
be
Larry.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny? I just stop by, buy him dinner or something, just come up to Portsmouth and talk about pickups.
But then magnetic pickups, which sometimes I kind of like better.
Magnetic pickups have been around on acoustics for a long time. That's kind of what a archtop is.
Right.
It's just a acoustic with a pickup on it.
Think of his first were I was going to say Guild.
But going back to John Lennon's Gibson with a pickup, remember that?
Well, the first ones that I remember might be Guild, but it might have been Gibson. They actually took a single coil electric guitar pickup, drilled 6 holes through between the last 2 frets.
Yeah, and stuck it up there.
The
That's what Guild did.
So it was, you couldn't even see it except for the 6 pole pieces. And then that morphed into sound hole pickups and other things.
Gibson had this thing that went on the edge of the sound hole that you could actually put on the back side if you wanted to change the sound. You could flip it over. That was the J45 with a pickup that John Lennon had.
So, yeah, they. Well, my fundamental belief, which may be outdated, is the best way to amplify your acoustic is stand in front of a good microphone.
Well,
but I realize that.
Let's make a caveat. The best sound is stand in front of a good microphone.
Yeah.
That's placed in exactly the right spot. And don't move. But that ain't going to happen.
Why do you have to move? Don't you usually play acoustic guitar sitting down?
Yeah, with one knee up.
Yeah. So who's moving? What, you think you're Dave Matthews or something?
Yes, that's Bruce Springsteen.
I understand. It's inconvenient, but that's what we did for 20 years.
Back in my day, we didn't have pickups. We sat in front of a short.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't even a short.
It was a Radio Shack, $10
Radio
microphone.
Shack, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me? Cool.
Turn it up. Oh, no, turn it down a little bit. Okay.
But pickups, the simplest thing to do is play your guitar unplugged and listen to how it sounds. Turn on the pickup. Does it sound exactly the same? No. It sounds different.
Yeah. How would you characterize the difference between the magnetic and piezo style pickups?
I want to say I think the magnetic pickups are a little more natural sounding, especially like the Fishman humbucker rare earth. Single coils don't really get that whole frequency.
Yeah.
The low end of an acoustic humbuckers sort of do.
Yeah, and that's so with the under the saddle ones, you hear the notes chiming individually a lot more, like bing, 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 bing.
Right.
And the magnetic just kind of goes, you get all those windings wound around there. It's enough to create some kind of phase realignment and kind of thing that just kind of blurs it up a little bit.
I suppose under the saddle pickups, piezo pickups in general have come far enough that they're good now. I remember the first time I plugged in an Ovation acoustic electric in the 70s. Ugh.
Yeah.
Why am I? If I want to be loud, I'll just get my electric guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This doesn't sound at all like an acoustic.
Although they really did. I mean, that's when you saw the artists using them on stage because you could play an acoustic on. So you could finally play acoustic in front of people.
Because there's no choice.
Yeah, like in a stadium or something. And that's when you
actually, I almost said, was Takamine second?
Where did
there was some really early Takamine acoustic electrics.
Yeah.
They might have been second.
Maybe. So just to catch up on some comments here. I'm sure I saw a picture somewhere of John playing. We were talking about John Lennon. A Cyclone-looking guitar on the Let It Be sessions. Cyclone? Does he mean like a Fender?
Was it a Fender Cyclone?
It was a Fender set. Anyways, John on the Let It Be sessions when Paul was playing piano, John was playing a bass 6. That might be what you were thinking was a good. It was.
Will show and tell. Did it look like this?
Yeah. That's the bass 6. It can sound like a bass or a guitar. It's kind of cool. It can't do everything a bass can do, but it's in the octave of a bass.
You can play bass on it, and
you can play it like a Jaguar too, and it sounds cool. But so people are suggesting guest hosts. You know, Stonewall is a guest host. Yes, we've been talking about it forever. Getting Scott here, so maybe I'll try to get him here.
He's just gotten out of bed.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, yeah, I have to make sure he gets out of bed.
His shop hours are roughly 6 p.m. to 2 in the morning,
or even later in the morning. He's a night guy for sure.
Then he goes out shopping at the 24-hour grocery store, has supper about the time you're getting out of bed, and then he goes to bed. But he could fit it in the 6 to 7 slot, I think.
Yeah, the J160E was the one that John Lennon used. Yeah,
that's the Lennon model.
I
think that had the fingerboard pickup.
Just catching up here on some comments. I had a Barkus Berry piezo pickup that looked like a piece of little wood that you would stick on the bridge with some putty. Yeah, they encased it in wood, so it was basically the doorbell I was talking about, and they just epoxy into a piece.
I still have some of that putty.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Last time I checked, it was still good after 30 years. I don't know what it is, but it's not organic.
Yeah, whatever. It's nuclear. A white or light colored. Yeah, so that's what he was asking about that bass. So that's probably what he was thinking when he saw. And we all know, if you're Beatles fans, that new Let It Be film is going to come out
postponed until next year now.
Oh, you postponed again?
That's what I heard about a week ago. Oh, no, 2022.
Yeah. Man, what are you doing to us, Peter Jackson?
Well, he's going to release 2-minute clips until we
I guess they made it
ourselves.
Well, actually, Ringo was on a show being interviewed that I heard, and he said that he saw a 4-hour edit that Peter Jackson did. No, he said he FaceTimed Paul, and Paul said over at his house they were watching the 4-hour-long Peter Jackson edit of, but it's got to get re-edited down to 2.5 hours or something.
If I bother. Just release all 52 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll watch.
We'll sort through it. Yeah. You should bring in some guitars and demo them. Yeah, that's the thing, and I do that a little bit on other things, but I just kind of feel like there's too many demos, and so every guitar demo on YouTube starts like this: and some guy holding a Telecaster, and then there's this quick "Hey everybody, here I am! I got the new Telecaster, Player Series Plus. Man, this thing's fucking fabulous, And it's just it's a little too car sales thing for me, and I don't, or they stretch it out and they do a little drama, and a lot of those are. And there's just tons of them out there. So I just let those people do that thing. And then we do this thing. We actually fix guitars. We know stuff about guitars that isn't on the spec sheet. Because that's the other thing they read to you is the spec sheet that Fender sent them
Right.
when they paid them $50 to do an replacement,
Yeah.
on their guitar, so it's all right. But yeah, maybe a little bit of that. And I do on some of the other videos, I do demo some stuff, but I usually talk about stuff more than demo it just because
we do a little bit of product review here because either we want to or mostly because people ask us, but it's not really what we're about.
But also
to talk around it, I guess.
if you're listening on YouTube, it's got massive compression on the audio. You're not really hearing the thing anyways, especially if it's live. Live has even more compression on the audio.
Yeah, don't buy guitar pickups based on a demo on the internet.
Okay.
They don't sound like that.
Okay, so you've done it again. You wasted another perfectly good hour listening to Guitar Talk.
Now I can go eat supper.
It's dinner time. It's pizza time. So thanks everyone for watching, and a couple other people just chimed in saying have a good trip, Gary.
Thank you, and I'll send you all postcards.
Yes.
But no, I'll see you in November.
Mid-November.
I forget which day I'm coming. Get back into the country on the 11th.
Yeah, but that's a Thursday. So,
but then there's jet lag, and so it might be the next week before I'm functional again.
All right. So without further drama, let's hit the end button. Stand by for the end. And bye.